Welcome, everyone. I'm Kimberly Boschman, and this is the Intentionally Intuitive podcast. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the numerology and the energy for the upcoming full moon that's occurring July 13th or 14th, depending on where you live within the world. Before we get into that reading, I just want to mention that this is, of course, a general forecast, a general reading. If you would like a personalized reading, which will be a much deeper dive into your own personal numerology, please book some time with me. I would love to work with you. My information is in the description box below. Please like, comment, and share. I absolutely appreciate and love hearing from you all. Your support has been so kind, so loving, so appreciated. And it helps to really bring even more awareness to numerology, and it helps to grow my little channel. And I just absolutely appreciate each and every one of you. I see you. I appreciate you. Thank you. Okay, so we are, of course, going to look at both the collective numerology and energy, as well as for each individual life path number. So before we get into that, I did pull an animal spirit message for this illumination, and we got seahorse energy. And so seahorse's message is all about composure and serenity. And I think this is this is very, very fitting for the energies that we may see during this illumination that may come up, which I'll talk about, of course. But one thing I just want you to keep in mind is if things become challenging with this energy, because there is a lot of transformative energy that's going to be sort of highlighted and it's sort of swirling about. If things feel a little bit challenging as you move through some of those transformations, just remember seahorse energy. If you've ever watched a seahorse, and you can sometimes see them like in aquariums and that sort of thing, they're so peaceful. They're so calm. There's just this very tranquil energy about them. And you can see all their little fins, I guess, moving, and they just seem to just be they're just floating. It's like they're floating in outer space, but there's just this tranquility to them. And it honestly just brings so much peace to, it's almost like you can feel that energy and it absorbs into your own environment, if that makes sense. So I think it's going to just be important to remember that we are not responsible for the harmony or the peace of others. We are responsible for our own harmony and peace. And so whatever we need to do to keep coming back to that center, especially if things are, if we're going through some kind of chaos or turmoil, it's up to us to find that serenity. It's up to us to find that composure. And so I think Seahorse is just reminding us that it is possible, even when you're, floating in a current, right? Or going through an uphill battle, you can find your own peace and tranquility through that experience. You'll still have to overcome whatever it is, but it will help you to move into and get into the flow. So beautiful energy there. I think it's really helpful, like I said, as we move through the energies of this illumination. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at sort of the overall numerology forecast for the collective. Okay, so the energies that I want to focus on for this illumination are that of the 8, the 13-4, the 9, and the 5. So I think this is going to be an interesting mixing pot of energy, to be honest. I get this sense of sort of like push-pull energy, but also very complementary energy. So it's an interesting sort of dichotomy and synergy happening here, that we may feel this and sort of need to figure out how to best work with these vibrations to make them work for us and the good of all. So again, we go back to seahorse spirit, right? Figuring out how to go with the flow, surrender, but then also do our part and take action where needed. It's an interesting energy. Like I said, I definitely feel like, especially collectively on sort of a bigger stage, we're going to see sort of this push-pull energy come out. I think it's already here, but I think it's going to be sort of highlighted even more with this illumination. So right out of the gate, I am drawn towards the energy of the 8. And with this, I'm seeing potential or increased power struggles, concerns of dominance or control, which seems to have, well, it seems to be a reoccurring theme for, thousands of years. but definitely in the last few years, we've seen sort of an increase with that. And we're definitely seeing that in certain places throughout the world at the moment. And so there really is sort of this need to put an effort in to find a way to balance that energy. So anything that surfaces or is initiated now will be working under the influence of the 4. So think of very slow progress, right? A lot of effort and determination and perseverance. So the 4 energy will tear down to rebuild. And also this is 13-4 energy. So this is very like Plutonian energy. This is like Tower energy as well. It's going to dismantle what it needs to dismantle so that we can rebuild where we need to rebuild. But that takes time. And again, perseverance. So if a shift in power or control needs to happen, it can very well happen, but only with the sort of dismantling of the old in order to put in place something much more sustainable with much more sort of far-reaching solutions. So it can sometimes feel like the 4 is working against us, but it's only asking us to be very discerning when it comes to where we invest our time, our energy, and our resources. So both the 8 and the 4 are very, very ambitious energies. The 8 sees the vast, bigger picture, and the 4 is the master of the details. So together, these energies can accomplish great things, but they have to work together without one energy being more dominant than the other. So finances could easily come into focus now, including physical resources, land, food, money, goods. Because the 4 is just as prominent here as the 8, that tells me that there needs to be some kind of restructuring in order to build something much more sustainable that works better than the previous systems. So again, I expect we may see some reorganization, some big shifts, disruptions, and dismantling in order to build something better that works for the greater good rather than the good of just a few. And the fact that it's 13-4 energy that we're working with, again, it could sort of have this more Plutonian feel, which is sort of like, I don't want to say chaos, but it just makes me think of like Pluto or Mars energy, right? It's like, well, really Pluto energy where it's like going to get in there. It's going to, dismantle what it needs to dismantle, break down any barriers it needs to break down in order to gain a greater perspective and then build something much better. But in that process can feel very uncomfortable, can feel very disorienting. So again, we just want to think of seahorse energy and find our peace and calm through that chaos, right? Because that chaos is necessary, or again, that dismantling, right, is necessary to not only gain a greater and better, broader perspective, but to build something that's just more evolved, right? And to put in place systems that are much more evolved. So I make reference towards the good of all because we also have very prominent 9 energy with this illumination. So where the 8 and the 4 can be more like focused energy and more sort of exclusive, so to speak, the 9 is pretty much entirely inclusive. The 9 energy is going to look for solutions to benefit the greater good, the we. And so while the 4 and the 8 are building towards a greater vision, the 9 is here to make sure that the focus of that building takes into consideration what is best for all, taking all sides into account and then coming up with a solution that makes the most sense to benefit the all without suppressing or oppressing others, right? So we are also in a 6th universal year. And so again, that which is greater than just ourselves, and we're moving from sort of the heart center, that will continue to be emphasized now, especially with this 9 energy. And again, the 6 universal year, we have all these energies sort of swirling about, helping us to see beyond our own needs and see how we can come to some sort of compromise, come to some sort of solution to work together. We have a lot of potent energies that are really pushing us to do that. Now, of course, we have free will. We are, sovereign beings, so we can make those decisions. But if the individual does it and if enough individuals do it, eventually we see the collective doing it. And so it all starts with us ultimately, right? So the potent 5 energy reminds us that nothing truly great can happen without a tremendous amount of change and a necessary amount of chaos. That's just the way it is, right? The world is full of polarities. The universe is full of polarities. That's how things get done, whether we like it or not. The 5 brings the change and the transformation and the drive to build in a way that promotes freedom and autonomy. Anything oppressive will eventually fall apart or be broken apart under 5 energy. The 4 says it will sort of take time, right? It's not something that's going to happen quickly. But the 5 is chomping at the bit to make things happen now. It wants freedom. Anytime I think of 5 energy, I picture like this group of wild stallion galloping through an open meadow. And the 4 is the gate, right? So it's kind of like, again, push-pull energy. We know where we want to get to. We know how we want to get there, but we need to be focused and controlled in those movements getting us there, right? Like there's a planning stage to this. If we just completely broke out of the gate and ran free, we would miss some of the details. And the details are going to be important here, especially as we're building something sustainable for the long haul, right? So again, we have very ambitious, focused, controlled, and heart-centered energies being met with this explosive, expansive, freedom-seeking energy of the 5. So again, push-pull is sort of an understatement here. And so again, it's about finding the balance so that we can incorporate all these energies, work with all these energies, and make them work for us and build something really, really great here. Like there's usually, or not even usually, there's never energies present to be worked with that aren't here to help us in some way, even if it feels uncomfortable, right? So overall, I expect this illumination to bring to light areas collectively and individually where there needs to be some restructuring, some more inclusivity, transformation, and independent freedom. And again, the 4 will force us to go slowly to make sure that we get it right. And if we try to move fast, if we try to just throw something together, that 13-4 will take it all apart. It's kind of like, when you're mastering something that takes time, when you're trying to build something that's great, it takes time. It's not something you can just throw together. And so it's kind of like working with a teacher who, when you don't do it right, will correct you. And again, it's the course corrections. And so that's the 4 energy. And so it's going to make sure that we get it right. It's going to take time. And so it's got to be for the highest good of not only ourselves, but of all involved. And so it's through this process that we will feel that push-pull. And we need to decide how we can participate individually in a way that not only feels good for us, but also takes others into consideration as well. Now, remember, we're not responsible for others, what they do, how they're feeling, any of that. That's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is with ourselves. But we are responsible for our actions because those actions bleed out into the collective, right? So things may absolutely come to a head now, be dismantled, and after the confusion clears, then the more we can come together to rebuild in a more sustainable way, then the better, right? So again, this is going to be a slow process. I really want to drive that home because sometimes it's easy to give up on something that we're not seeing the instant gratification from, and you will not get the results that way. So if it's something that speaks to your heart, if it's something that really calls to you, the persistence, the perseverance has to be there. The patience has to be there. You have to kind of commit for the long haul until you see the results. Again, if it speaks to you. So that's kind of where we're at collectively with this energy. Let's go ahead and take a look at the forecast for each individual life path number now. Beautiful 11 twos. All right, so this illumination, you all are not only working with the energies of the collective, like I spoke about, but you're also working with one energy. And so at your core, you've got your two energy, right? But in this illumination, there's sort of an undercurrent of the one energy, which is really like very independent energy, very like self-driven, very, again, about the I, right? So this is going to be, because as a 11-2, relationships and helping people come together and inspire others and all of that is such a big part of your core, that this one energy can kind of feel a little bit like push-pull, although you are working with the one energy with your 11, right? You've got two ones there. So this isn't anything new for you. But I do think it's going to feel more potent and bring things to the surface that need to be addressed and looked at when it comes to this energy. So this is going to be a great opportunity to really reflect on how you, the individual, show up to relationships within your life. So you don't have control over another person, right? And how they show up and what they do. But there are areas where you could potentially transform in how you are contributing to the experience, right? Like, how are you showing up to the relationship? Are there any areas where there could be some modification, where you could make some adjustments, where you could do things a little bit differently? Can you be more communicative? Can you have those conversations, those difficult conversations with people to see, to actually find out what it is that they need? And is that aligned with what you need? So again, there's a lot going on here for you all under this illumination to really just open up the lines of communication with people. And again, not override what you need as the individual. Take that into consideration while also taking into consideration what the other person needs. And a lot of times what we find when we do this is that we have been showing up to a relationship that's not aligned, that just there is really no solution. We've been either sacrificing and accommodating, or the other person has been doing that, to the point where there's not a flow of energy. It's like one person's doing more or self-sacrificing. That's not healthy, right? And so again, with the lines of communications being opened, you can communicate what you need, and the other person can communicate what they need. And if you find that it's misaligned, then you can either see, okay, is this something I can compromise on? Is it something they can compromise on? If not, then there's a conversation to be had about that, right? Maybe it's just not working and this is the time to part ways. Then maybe this should have happened a long time ago, and that's why neither of you are fully happy or flourishing in this relationship, right? And this can be about, any relationship, right? So friends, colleagues, family, whatever, romantic relationships. This energy, I think, is just really coming in to say, there needs to be the communication. There needs to be the open dialogue about, okay, this is what I need. What do you need? Can we find common ground here? If we can't, then what are we doing? If we can, great. And then you're going to see things start to flourish. You're going to see things move then, right? It's not going to feel like this stagnant energy where you're just constantly, where nobody's happy because somebody is overgiving, somebody is self-sacrificing, right? Anytime there's sacrificing energy, it's not a flourishing energy. It's a very restrictive energy. And there's a lot of room there for resentment, which will eventually bubble to the surface and come out. And so again, I just think that this is going to highlight for you where it is that there needs to be some transformation or some changes. And the easiest way to figure out where that is through communication, is through having having that dialogue. And if you don't know what you need, then before you have that conversation, maybe do some journaling, right? Do some exploration of yourself. And I know that a lot of that comes through the journey of life, but there are some things that we're not willing to compromise on, that we're not willing to sacrifice. Those are the things that you would highlight as needs, right? To the person that you're having the conversation with. And if that person can't meet you there, then again, maybe it's not working. Maybe it's time to part ways until down the road, maybe they can meet you there, and vice versa, because you're a part of this as well, right? It's how you're contributing to their experience as well. And you may see that you can't meet that person there, right? At where it is that their needs land. So again, communication, I just think, is going to be really, really coming in and really, really strongly here. Because the more that you avoid whatever this is, the more that things are just going to fester and continue to sort of compound and build up until they just blow up. And then, there's just more drama that could have been avoided. So a lot coming in here around, again, just taking a really close look at how it is that you show up to relationships, what that looks like for you. Where is it that maybe you're asking people to sacrifice themselves where they don't need to be, or where you're sacrificing yourself where you don't need to be. So conversation is going to be really, really key for you under this illumination. And again, this illumination is going to highlight for you where it is that those conversations need to be had. And then it's up to you for what you decide to do with that. And these adjustments could have powerful effects on how you relate to others and how others relate to you. So listen to what others say to you at this time. Truly listen to what they're saying. Without trying to offer a solution, without trying to offer your point of view, listen to what they're saying. You'll know whether or not you can meet them there or not. Just like they'll know if they can meet you there or not, without having to sacrifice their own truth and what they need, right? So you can decide through these conversations what actions you need to take, what actions you want to take, what you're willing to compromise on, what you're not willing to compromise on, and you can go from there. But I do think that this energy is going to really highlight that for you. And it can feel uncomfortable, but it's sort of through that uncomfortableness that we can expand, that we can grow into something much bigger than where we're at. So this energy is going to help you guys to do that. All right, 11s. I hope it's a beautiful illumination with a lot of beautiful transformation. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.